I don't know, the brightest days are ahead, so you have to ask me again in another 27 years, like, did you ever expect it could get this much more wonderful to live here? It's a great place.
Here we are, the 50th episode of Why Sarasota, and today I've got the honor of introducing you to the folks that have been telling you about this incredible city for 27 years. SRQ Magazine, come with me. So now in your 27th year, what was the inspiration to start this, and what were you doing before it?
So the origins of SRQ Magazine. Really, SRQ was started with a drive for my business partner and I to have three things we wanted to accomplish. We wanted to be in control of our product, so the quality of the product was purely the result of what we could put into it. We wanted to be engaged in the community, like part of the community, not just a business that's present, but one that's participating. Of course, all this is within the confines of being a media company.
Sure.
And the third one is we wanted to do good. We wanted to make the community a better place, a happier place, a more positive place. We call ourselves, good news. So if you spend time reading an SRQ magazine, when you close it, you should go away feeling better about yourself, better about the world, excited about the people who are our local champions. Maybe there's a restaurant you don't know about that you can go to. Maybe there's a park you've never heard of that you can go and experience. Our goal is to create all of those positive motivations. And I guess I gave a tangential direction from your question. What happened prior to this is my business partner and I experimented in other kinds of media, and we just didn't find that freedom. I had a background in motion picture film, like feature films. The feature film industry is a difficult place, a difficult industry. It's kind of a dark industry, and that wasn't for me. My business partner, she was in broadcast journalism, and as you can imagine, that also was not a great experience. We almost, as a team, got involved with documentary filmmaking, National Geographic. I love National Geographic, but it was a little disheartening to find out how much was staged. I guess our naivete told us that we wanted to do something unique and our own. And I guess the one that I left out in there was, and then the one that really was where we knew we had to be in control. We started a video production company when it was pretty outrageous to do that, and we were the first ever stringer team for the Sci-Fi Network. We were shooting all over NASA. It was so cool, and we were doing music videos for a label out of California. And I'm sure both of those entities in particular loved having their creative input, but we found it really kind of crushing to have a vision and then you put it in the mail and you mail it to California or you mail it to Manhattan, and they take the product that you've created and what comes back isn't your vision and you aren't happy with it. And after that experience, we said we want to create things that we can control. And in this case, my answer continues, especially with a magazine, we're printed on the same presses as any other magazine. So if someone else's magazine can look amazing, it's purely us. That's the difference between us looking amazing and not, right? And so we tried to aspire to achieve a look that would be proud in any city in America.
So what was the Sarasota media landscape 27 years ago?
Oh, that's a great question. What an interesting question, for me at least. I love to think about that. When we started SRQ Magazine, there were numerous small publications. I think that there was this niche. There are always people who want to have their voice heard, or they have stories to tell, or they have something interesting to share. And if you go back 27 years, you didn't have the internet as a venue for that. You couldn't become a YouTuber or whatever these modern outlets are. It meant the barrier to entry was much higher. Anyone can start a YouTube channel and it's effectively free. If you wanted to tell your story, you had to figure a way to have enough budget to print pages and distribute them and build relationships and have advertisers. So there were numerous small zines and mini magazines. There were a handful of like credible media, the Sarasota Herald Tribune or the Observer Group as newspapers. There were a couple of local magazines. And if you're going to start a business, there needs to be a niche that is different. If the niche is filled, you're going to have a hard time. And I think the biggest thing that we saw is what we saw was the arrival of baby boomers, although people weren't really using that term even at that point. And it sounds crazy to people now to go, we saw the baby boomers arriving, right? Because we're at a very different stage with the boomer population. But the generation of people that were in Sarasota before that had aged, and I guess I would say they had embraced aging. And the media rewarded that. So one of the local publications kind of sort of, I feel like infamously told us the people that we write our magazine for want to be told, congratulations, you made it, have a seat. Like, it's done, you're done, you did it, sit down. And we looked around and the people we saw were they were retiring into convertibles. They were retiring into constant travel. They were retiring into starting their dream business that they'd always envisioned having. And that was a youthful energy. And boomers were still young then, but that energy is what we tapped into. We wanted to reach the term that we still use is young people of all ages. One of the biggest compliments I get all the time is people of literally every age come up to me and say, I love your magazine. I know it's for people a little older than me, but I love it. And you're looking at them and sometimes they're 70, and sometimes they're 50, and sometimes they're 30. And they all think they're like getting away with something because they're seeing it's about our community, which is a little bit older community, but it has this youthful energy that anyone can tap into.
And so how do you see that it's evolved then from where you started to where you are now?
For us?
Yes.
Wow. When you start a media company, it's hard to express how completely out of the vacuum you have to make it appear. If you start a restaurant selling tacos, people know what a taco is. If you start a bar, people have a sense of a bar. When you start a media company, it is fully pulled out of the ether based on your commitment to make it happen. And for me, I can remember those days like it was yesterday when you would call someone and say you're SRQ Magazine and they don't know what you're talking about. I think that we get a lot of responsibility for people even knowing SRQ as a designation. Like, if you went back 30 years, the only time someone thought of those three letters is when they flew in and out of the airport, and that was it. They'd look for their bag, they'd pull their tag off the bag, and it wasn't a local identifier.
Sure.
So I'd say that established role, and then, I guess what we've done, we're a small business, it's Liesl and I are the two owners. We don't have other owners that we have to answer to. We've been able to make decisions the whole time, and we started the business because we were too young and naive to know it was impossible, and somehow we managed to stick to our principles throughout. We've had infinite opportunities or offers to sell out our credibility, and we've always said no. And I think that's why 27 years later, we're stronger than we've ever been. Yeah.
So how has, the digital age, you certainly didn't start in the digital age, how has it changed your business?
Yeah, it's funny to say we didn't start in the digital age. We started so prior to the digital age that to tell the technology we were dealing with, to describe it now seems like the Stone Age. We came out of the gate doing all of our design on a computer. You may have heard of those. There was at least one other magazine in town who, when we started, was still using an X-Acto blade, and you'd write text on a computer, print it, and then take that print, so there was some computer, and then cut it with a knife and glue it with glue onto big sheets, and then send those off to be photographed, and then that would become the pages of your magazine. So there was at least one. Now, they should have given it up by the time that they were still doing it, but there was at least one still doing it. And photographs, the photographs that went into the magazine were such high resolution and the computers were so slow that you couldn't put them in the computer. So you'd send a disk with the images and then a smaller disk that, there was no internet, and you'd send a smaller disk that had the layout, and you'd write, it would say put image 12 here, put image 13 here, because the software couldn't support the images being put in. Like, what a different time. Obviously, it's made a lot of things easier and faster, the ability to manage data, the ability to manage the office, Google Docs, what a dream shift that is, having all of our data, the files can be any size, all of that's wonderful. None of it changes the core, which is telling stories. When it comes down to it, it's a human interaction, human observation. I think it's a necessity to have our staff here, people that live here, that are part of the community, and then we experience our community just as anyone else does, our journalists do and our editors, and then those become stories that we tell. So, it becomes a little easier to drive the journey, but it's still that journey, that exploration is what matters. So I think it's changed, the technology has changed, but the skill has not.
So I see, love local seems to be a theme that is threaded throughout much of what you guys do. What does that mean to you?
Love local is a succinct, concise way to capture that our goal is to celebrate local, to celebrate our community, our home, our mutual home. If you look in the pages of SRQ Magazine, you're going to see places that you know. You're going to see people that you could meet at a restaurant on Main Street. There's something exceedingly special about that local energy that we've lost in so many other areas of our lives. Kids spend time online gaming with people that they'll never meet in person in other continents. There's a way in which that's cool. It also means that connection is broken. And so we have, through our pages, through our stories, also through the numerous events we do a lot of events, Women Who Roar, and the Smart Girl Initiative, and 35 Under 35 for young professionals, and the list goes on and on. We have all of the secret reason that we do all these events is it brings people together. It brings people into one room, humans, one-to-one, making eye contact, creating relationships, and all of that is the Love Local magic. Local. It's my favorite word, and it is funny when you ask it. It is not so easy to answer in the most succinct way. It is something we know when we experience it, and it's our job to celebrate it. And, again, when you leave the magazine, we want every reader to be in a better place and for their lives to be a little improved and their insights to be a little expanded. And if that happens here, where I live, where my kids live, where my mom lives, where my people I care about live, then everybody is raised just a little bit. And so, I try to keep my ambitions small and how much I can raise all ships. But I think if all of us set out for that as a goal, then the net result is tremendous.
You just touched on some of the events that you curate throughout the year. Can you give us an idea of some of those events and maybe some stuff that we're going to see coming up here in the future?
Yeah, we have, as I said, what we're always trying to do is bring people together. It's amazing how often people that are peers or in the same industry, people who are have so much in common, never actually meet in person. And honestly, that was kind of a shocking thing to us when we started the magazine. And so we've made it in part our mission to chip away at that. We just had a philanthropy SB2. It's a philanthropy event where we give out awards and congratulate people whose peers recognize them as tremendous philanthropists. And we had on stage the executive directors of 6 of the biggest philanthropic foundations in town. And those people all know each other. They're all friendly. How often do they sit down at a table together, all of them, and enjoy each other's company?
Sure.
So in that particular example, as great as it was to have them all in a panel discussion for 30 minutes of the almost 2-hour-long program, I know even more comes from when they all sit around the table during the rest of the program at the luncheon. And again, you multiply that by innumerable events. Our 35 under 35 is a natural one. We recognize 35 people who are under the age of 35 whose peers recognize them as up-and-comers in our community. Maybe a lot of these people would have bumped into each other if they're go-getters and up-and-comers, but they definitely wouldn't have met everyone. And now we bring them all into one space, and we bring their friends into one space, and people walk out the door just coming up with ideas and growing things. We do our Home of the Year competition, which we just had. The Home of the Year is very popular. It's it's unusual in that we take submissions and then we find judges actually from around the country, recognized architects, and they look at the works of local home builders, architects, designers, and then rate them, and then we do a big award ceremony. The builders are super proud of it, they love it, it's a very positive experience. Kind of another example, home builders don't always see each other that often. Like, they're on their own projects.
Sure.
They're not on each other's projects. And so again, to bring people who might even be, vigorous competitors into a room together, we think there's a secret benefit to that, a magical benefit to bringing the community together. Your question was, what other events do we have coming on? Some of our events weave in and out of the magazine. Something that's coming up next, it's a competition more than an event, is our Pets We Love, which is very popular. People have nominated pets in the area, and a lot of times the stories that come with them they may be heartbreaking. I mean, animals can be very healing for people.
Sure.
And so we have all these stories about animals that have changed people's lives, and then we engage our readers in voting for which ones are their favorites, although I like to think everyone's a winner in this case. But it's an engaged program that's a lot of fun. I don't know, there's new stuff all the time. Our best of the best, there's almost something every month, so it's hard to, or more often than that, so it's hard to answer the question succinctly. So where are you from originally?
Rochester, New York.
Rochester, New York. And so when did you come to Sarasota?
2.5 years ago. It'll be 3 years, July 24th.
I'm going to guess the answer, but I'm not going to say it. What motivated your move?
Oh, New York. No, a number of things. I had a bunch of rental properties up there at one point, very low income. I was trying to make a positive impact in a huge concentration of poverty by bringing housing. I was selling real estate, helping people achieve their first home, but realized you can't get people out of poverty if you don't give them a place to live. If you don't have a place to put your head, you're not going to get your stuff together. So tried to make an impact there, and did. I had about 37 rental properties, 97 doors. Most of those were rooming houses, so people coming out of incarceration, rehab, homelessness, mental illness, you name it. It was a very interesting existence. I was doing quite well with it and really working with different organizations, the county jail, helping place people that really needed a place to call home. 2019, New York and the legislature in their infinite wisdom passed the Tenant Protection Act, which basically pushed eviction times out and also made it to where your only recourse was a judgment. Well, my folks were kind of judgment proof, if you will. They had felonies, they weren't worried about their credit scores. So, as a business, I wasn't, philanthropic about it. I couldn't be, I'm not in that position yet. So we got to a point where I was just gonna go bankrupt if I didn't start liquidating. So I started liquidating those properties, and in the frustration of liquidating what was going to be my retirement, my wife works for an ad agency up there, and they told her she could work from home forever. I said, I've got an idea, and she's from Thailand originally. So we came down here, hung out for a weekend. I said, what do you think? She says, I've lived in paradise once, I can do it again. I said, well, I can sell real estate anywhere, so let's go. And I exported a number of friends from New York to beautiful places like this. I figured, what's the worst that could happen? We fell in love with the area. Our daughter was 9 at the time. I figured it was a good time before she got in, her groove with a friend group and all that. So I said, let's try it. Like, what's the worst that can happen? Fall flat on my face and I'll move back. But now you'll have to dynamite me out of this place. It's incredible.
As a parent, how has it been for your daughter? How is she?
What
is she doing, and what are her extracurriculars?
She loves it. She attends Sarasota Christian School. We're in our 3rd year there. She's picked up tennis since and she's been doing quite well with that. She picked up sailing at the yacht club. So every Sunday from noon to 4, she's out there sailing around the bay and exploring. She's, of course, this is 6th grade, so now she's got school sports. So she was on the cross country team, the basketball team. She's got a great friends group, and we just enjoy the fact that it's not, hide in the house for half the year like it was in New York. So it's been an incredibly positive change for our family.
That is wonderful. Yeah.
It's really a wonderful place. I feel like we're cheating the system every day. I don't know when that's going to wear off, especially this time of year when I toggle on my weather app and it's 34 but feels like 10. Back home, and I'm walking around downtown with a short sleeve Tommy Bahama shirt on.
Do you have a getaway that you go to when it gets too hot?
No, I'll take the heat.
You'll take the heat.
I love it. My wife's from Thailand. I've been there 10 times.
Yeah.
It never gets as hot or as humid here as it does in Thailand.
Yeah.
So even like our hottest days over there would be like a reprieve.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm down for it. It's
That
good.
sounds awesome.
Yeah.
And have you been able to re-dip your toes in the charitable programs that you had, or something like that?
I haven't really found a niche yet down here. I've been pretty focused on trying to build the real estate business. I'm in year 2. I'll actually going into year 3 now. Yeah. So it's consuming quite a bit. Starting over to town where I didn't know anybody, which is the reason for this series, Why Sarasota. I was answering the question up to people up north, whether it's other agents I knew that were thinking about making a referral or people that were interested in getting out of New York, like, Tampa to Naples. And I'm like, well, you got to come to Sarasota. Why? Yeah. So after answering that question probably 100 times, I figured I'm going to embark on proactively answering the question.
Have you seen people's conception of what Florida is change over the last 5 or 6 years, over a last short period of time?
Yes. So in the sense, I think a lot of my contemporaries, I'm 42, a lot of people felt like that's where my grandparents go to retire. And then they realized when they could work from home that you could work from home and walk out and have the sunshine every day. And you could not pay state income tax and all the other.
That's a benefit.
You could see the sun, you could keep your money, you could enjoy being outdoors quite a bit more often. You could stay active. My perception has changed quite a bit just coming down here. I swear Sarasota is the fountain of youth because I work out the YMCA in Potter Park in the morning and it's people in their 80s active, riding the Legacy Trail at the beach, walking around. It's like, okay, this is life. This is good.
There's something tremendous about that.
He's flipping the script on me. He's going to interview me now.
There's something tremendous about that. The energy, the vitamin D, the light from the sun. You sort of came back around to it, something I said earlier, which is young people of all ages, right?
Yeah.
You can go to places, and maybe it's not totally fair, but places that get dark and cold in the winter. And I feel like a lot of times you meet people who are old. They sit in a chair. They don't have very far to go. They wear a knit sweater that's very old. Mm-hmm. And then you say, boy, how long have you been, when did you retire? And they're like, oh, recently, I'm only 60. You're like, what? What is going on? Like in Sarasota, you'd be playing tennis 5 days a week, planning your next vacation, driving around in a convertible out at the beach. Like, it'd be a totally different energy.
So what positive changes have you seen covering Sarasota over the last 27 years?
This is an exciting place. There's been amazing growth and transformation. It has been wonderful to see not only that youthful energy continue, but our community has gotten younger. It's just about change though, so it's tough to answer that because we started with all the right elements. Mm-hmm. We are a community where people disproportionately are happy to be here. People chose to be here, which is a big difference. It's not like they were born somewhere and feel like they were stuck their whole lives. People reached a point in their life where they said, I'm going to make a change, and this was the change. That's a personal investment. Something that's a tremendous benefit has been getting more younger families. There's something really different about raising your kids somewhere. The investment that a parent has when their child is growing up in a space is a definite benefit. I guess the indirect way that I would approach that question is you only have one of two choices as a community, as anything that's a group of humans. You're either decaying or you're growing. You either grow or decay. Do I like the traffic? No. Are there favorite buildings of mine that have gotten torn down? Yes, it's painful. You either grow or decay. It has to be one of the two. And you definitely don't want to be in a decaying community. There's no joy in that. So as a true native, I grew up on Siesta Key. I feel like I was 7 years old before I wore shoes or anything but a bathing suit. Where I grew up on Siesta Key, there was a 20-acre forest just randomly on the key that I spent a big chunk of my childhood in. All of that's now condos and developed. Is that a little painful? Yes. Do I celebrate what a beautiful community it's become? Yes, I have to. It has to be one of the two. There's no stasis. Stasis is stagnation. That's decay. So I think that we as a community have gone amazing places. The interactivity is amazing. The sense of community is amazing. Something that's changed a lot is the Gulf Coast communities, so the breadth of communities, and primarily, let's say, Manatee, Bradenton, Sarasota, but then all of the Welland Park, all these, Lakewood Ranch, all these areas, there's an increasingly strong sense of place among them, which is great. When we started, there's a small side story, but one of the reasons we started our SB2, Sarasota Bradenton Squared, speaking events is we would bring community leaders from Bradenton and from Sarasota and put them on a panel together. And the reason we did that is we realized they had never met each other. And that was crazy.
Sure.
Like there was a sense of rivalry that was unhealthy. And so you would have someone in charge of transportation in each county and they'd never met. You'd have someone in charge of whatever, different parts of our community growth, and they hadn't engaged. So I think that's a big benefit. I don't know, the brightest days are ahead, so you have to ask me again in another 27 years, like, did you ever expect it could get this much more wonderful to live here? It's a great place.
What Sarasota traditions do you look forward to each year?
Sarasota traditions that I love. Well, we all have our own traditions. I love Christmas, going to Enanders. So Enanders is a private home down in Englewood, Venice, Florida, and they have an infinite number of Christmas lights that they put up. And there is something super exceptional to me about Enanders. My favorite year going to Enanders was the year when it had a cold snap and then it rained. And we went anyways, and you could pretend you were not in Florida. Like we were freezing cold in coats. I love Enanders. That makes me think of other Christmas traditions. So I love Selby Lights. I always go to the holiday light show at Selby. I'm a big Christmas guy, so anything that happens during Christmas I love. Maybe this isn't a good answer, but when it hits summer, like a lot of native Floridians, I head to the mountains. So I always do look forward to my North Carolina getaway. We have snowbirds that come here, Nobody tends to call us that, but we're definitely mountain birds that that flee for part of the summer. I love this time of year when it's sunny and bright and just a little bit of coolness in the air. It is wonderful, and so the first time, and this time of year we're coming up on the period where the water gets really clear. And so it's a great time for scuba or snorkel, if that's something you do. Other things that I used to love, I'm not a big sports guy, but my dad was. And so, try not to be emotional, because I haven't lost him I lost him 3 years ago. But my dad and I going to see the Orioles, play here. For him, not a sports guy, but for him it was paradise. And so to spend that time with my dad was always exceptional. And it's amazing that we have, sports teams that people will kill to see in their hometown, and they're just practicing here. So what are other traditions that I love? This isn't exactly a tradition, but if someone comes to visit, I try to make sure that part of their visit to Sarasota and Florida, if there's any way I can get them in a canoe in Mayaca, that's pretty good. Because once you get someone who's from a state that doesn't have alligators out in the Mayaca River, and all the alligators pop up and start looking at them, they get to see a little bit of that primalness that Florida is one of the places we still have. That's one of the things that makes us special. There's a primal element to Florida that is still present, and I love our gators for that reason. No one I've taken that way has been eaten by a gator, so they're a lot safer than, not yet. What other things? Maybe I should leave it at that, because I feel like I would go on for too long. I don't know if those are traditions even, but those are some of the things I love.
Sure.
As soon as we go on to the next question, I'm going to be kicking myself and thinking of other things I forgot to say.
Well, the next one I'm going to limit you to. So I'm going to say, I always like to leave these things off with either, what do you tell people they should do in Sarasota, but I'm shifting it a little bit, so I'm going to throw you for a loop. Describe Sarasota in 3 words.
Oh. Sunny smiles, home.
I like it. Wes, thanks for your time today.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. I want to thank Wes and the incredible team here at SRQ Magazine, not only for giving us an amazing publication showcasing this awesome city, but for meeting with us today. Until the next time, be well.